I don't know if this thing's on. I guess it is.
It
I
says
thought
live.
it does say live. Let me
Oh,
make
nope. I
sure
just saw it's on. Yeah. Hi, guys. We're on Twitter now. I'm
Are we
currently
on Twitter?
watching myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right over here. I'm looking at it right
Okay.
now.
Let me retweet this real fast so people can see.
It looks like it's about a 10 to 15-second delay.
Okay. Can one of you guys have the chat open just so if someone asks questions, I'll open up
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah, I can. I'll check. I'll be refreshing the Twitter feed throughout to see if anybody
Okay.
says anything.
Also, hello guys. Sorry, we're this is new. This is
Can
not
you tell
something
it's our first live stream?
yeah. This is not
Sweet.
something I have done before, so bear with us as we do this. So we are live. Normally, we record these around this time on Mondays, just to get our thoughts out without in spaces. Sometimes it can be a little bit wild, um, but
First comment.
that's funny. Just so that we can get our thoughts out. Also, Tar Heel fans, you are welcome to talk and leave comments. More than happy to take your questions. But normally we just record these so we can get our thoughts out into a podcast format for people to listen to. But we thought since we're going to be in the Sweet 16 this week against the Tar Heels, that we should go live and take your questions. I know some people had asked about whether or not we could go live, and we had asked people to give us some questions. And additionally, we have Michael Harper down below, as you can see. Not normally on here, but we decided that having the four of us on here to kind of talk Alabama basketball, maybe what happened with the round of 32 game against Grand Canyon. Wow, it is really delayed. Would be good. So just bear with us as we get here. We'll answer any questions or comments that you may have, and you kind of get to see the inner workings of how we go about recording podcasts, and different things like that over on Crimson Crossover. So for those of you who do not know me, I'm Christian Sykes. Joey Blackwell, Charles Branch are our other two co-hosts, and then obviously Michael Harper, who does join the Twitter Spaces for post game from time to time to give his analysis on what he's seeing. But how you guys doing today?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Trying to calm myself knowing
that. Feeling sweet, feeling good. Well, Alabama beats Grand Canyon University, noted fake university.
Noted national park.
Noted national park. Filled the canyon. 72-61 in a game that Alabama that played defense, which has not been the case for a large part of the season, at least in the back half of the season. Alabama's actually, I went and looked at it. Alabama, I think, is ranked like 28th or 38th in defense over the last week per Bartorvik. I can't remember the exact stat. Someone sent it to me, but that was a defensive battle, defensive struggle. A lot of bodies flying on the floor. You had two techs in the game, one by Oates, another one by the bench, which was Nick Pringle slamming a clipboard down, which shattered everywhere, which was kind of funny. Also, in that same clip, I'm pretty sure Kai Spears was on the baseline, like running towards the goal, and an assistant had to come and like pull him back. So I'm not entirely sure what made the guys so upset. I could name three things that I would probably think would have made them upset, but another great game from Mark Sears, double, 26 points, 12 assists, or 26 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists. Aaron Estrada had, what was it, like 8 points, 10 rebounds, and like 4 steals or something like that. And then obviously I think the story of the game was probably Mo Diabate, who, if you see on the little banner down below, Ramadan Mo is what we've deemed him. He is participating in Ramadan right now, and is not allowed to eat or drink anything during the month of it's the beginning of March to the end of or to the beginning of April, so an entire month essentially. During I think it's during sunlight hours. So for these games, it's because they're on the West Coast. So for Alabama fans listening, um, he's not allowed to eat anything before or during the games. He's not allowed to have water. And he comes in, has 8 points, 8 crucial points down the stretch to kind of pull away. And Alabama goes on a 17-3 run after Grand Canyon is up 58-53 to close out the game. So it's great game by Alabama. What were your guys' thoughts on Alabama and just the overall game from the different players?
Yeah, I'll try not to repeat myself too much, but I do know that we have some listeners here that don't necessarily listen to our spaces, so I'll try to Cliff Notes it here. The defense, first and foremost, like you said, Christian, this defense over the past week is very, very apparent that they focused on that after the SEC tournament loss. Not just that, but also they've been communicating a lot better. The matchups, especially the matchups against Grand Canyon, weren't necessarily favorable to them, but they still matched up. They still were able to take advantage of that and use it. As far as their limiting turnovers, I know there was 14, which they have been getting better at that, but still 14 when you look at the turnover numbers after that game, I was honestly shocked it wasn't more than that. It felt like both sides were turning the ball over every 5 seconds. Grand Canyon also is a very underrated rebounding team, and the fact that Alabama out-rebounded them, that was definitely a big point of the game. But going back to the defense, I know I mentioned this specific point on the space, but the fact that once Grand Canyon took that 3-point lead, I think it was 58-55 at the 6:03 mark. Alabama didn't allow them to score a basket the rest of the game. Grant Foster had those three free throws at around I think he had 2 at the 4:40 mark and 1 at the 4:05 mark. But other than that, they didn't get they didn't get any points for the rest of the game. So I think that makes it a 17-3 run. So just closing out the game like that is just remarkable. Even when the calls weren't necessarily going their way, the team never lost their energy. They never lost their spirit. They didn't let it bother them, other than, if anything, it let them, they let it motivate them. So it was definitely a quality win, a character win. I think Oates said it was a character win last night. It was very gritty. And if they can overcome what they had to overcome last night, aka Sunday night, the sky is the limit for this team. I know that we're going to talk about North Carolina, and they present a lot of their own issues for Alabama and matchups, but I think that this team really showed their heart, and that's all. It seems like that's all they've been doing since the NCAA tournament started.
I thought going into the game that we had the guys that could play one-on-one defense. Grand Canyon was a team that they only averaged 12 assists. There's not a whole lot of ball movement. Grant Foster is the guy who really gets things going for them, and I think it's McLaughlin and Harrison also are a good supporting cast. So I felt there was an opportunity that we could play really solid one-on-one defense, and I think we did. Maybe contrary at least to the total foul shots that they got, which was 37. In a way, the game played out exactly how Grand Canyon wanted to. Yeah, they would have liked to have made some more free throws, but that is their game, where they got 35% of their scoring last night from the free throw line. And yet you still win with the second lowest amount of points that you've scored all year. Before last night, 71 was the lowest we'd scored against Tennessee at Food City Center, and 72's the next now, and still able to get a win with it. So just really impressed with how the guys continue to fight, both physically and mentally. I mean, Yeah, we talked about it last night. I was a little surprised as far as some of the pundits out there talking about the game, that it was chaotic. Yeah, it was chaotic because the officials didn't know what they were doing. There was no consistency from the officials as far as how the game was going to be called. You can't tell me a team built like ours that attacks the rim as much as it does should shoot 22 free throws, and Grand Canyon should shoot 37. And I know that sounds like me complaining and being a poor winner after we did win the game, but just frustrating that you're in the NCAA tournament and those three guys just could not call the game, well, in my opinion, and one of them's going to the Sweet 16. So hopefully they send Kip Kissinger somewhere else than the West region. But since he's already out there, maybe there's a chance that he's still sticking around. Look, I think everybody that played had a crucial moment in the game. So hopefully everybody can continue to build off of that momentum as well. I thought Rylan Griffin was fantastic. He knocked down a couple threes, but he really locked up Grant Foster, Mo Diabate, enough. There's going to be more comments about him, but going to the free throw line and knocking down 3 free throws when he hasn't been shooting the ball well from the free throw line. With the environment that it was, whether it's paid actors, whether it's actually like people enrolled in the school, just to keep your wits about you enough to finish out the game was just really, really impressive. It's now knowing what our defensive numbers are relative to Bart Torvik, and really wish he'd closed out the Charleston game a lot better, because I think Charleston is a team that you have to play better team defense, and we did play really good team defense for at least the first 30, 35 minutes, and they kind of went on a late scoring run when we had made some substitutions. The first shot defense for the weekend has been great. Obviously, we're giving up a lot of offensive rebounds, and teams are getting some putbacks there. But look, we've talked about it. Like, this team fights. We're kind of playing with house money. We're just happy to be there. We're happy to be in LA in the Sweet 16. So whatever comes our way, we'll absolutely take it. But as far as just, doing what needed to be done, not every team from Alabama, got out of the Spokane regional headed into the Sweet 16. So just excited for what we've got coming up next weekend.
Actually, there's only one of 3 that got out of the Spokane regional from Alabama. I guess there could have only been 2, because Auburn and UAB would have played each other. But Michael, what are your thoughts on the game?
So my big takeaway from this game is that we would have probably lost this game a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. Joey said it right. It was grit, and it was a gut check. Our shots weren't falling, not just from 3. We had numerous great looks right under the rim, right at the rim, that just wouldn't go in. Had some wide open threes that just weren't going in, and it wasn't our night. And Oates has said numerous times that we let that this team has a tendency to let the offensive end dictate their effort on the defensive end, and that didn't happen last night. And I think we did a lot to take away the narrative of live by the 3, die by the 3, because we definitely didn't live by the 3 last night.
We didn't die by it either.
We did not die by it either.
Hey, I'll say this: good teams win, great teams cover, and Alabama covered. So
that they did.
Charles, I don't know if you saw me grin at Michael, but what was going through my head was, your comments in the group chat about it felt like we hadn't had an and one since January. And that poor shooting at the basket or driving to the basket and all, it seemed like every time if we drew a foul, the ball wouldn't fall in. I think we had 2 or 3 of those last night finally, but goodness gracious, it took forever.
The first one in a while was from Diabate, who is, I think, coming into the game was a 43% free throw shooter.
Yeah. I made the comment that we haven't had an and one since January. And it's over. It's finally done.
It actually, just so for people are aware, it actually hasn't been since January. That might be a little bit of an overreaction, but
it felt like it. I mean, obviously, you go back to the Tennessee game at home where we had so many of those shots at the rim where we're getting fouled, just kind of cry off the rim. Where if you had gotten one of those and then gotten the and one to go off of it, that game probably changes. But yeah, that one, that was a huge moment. And I want to say too, like Mo obviously made the play, got the rebound and put it up and got fouled. But Sam Walters was also down there on the other block and made the tip. And there's been a lot of plays this year that Sam has made a crucial tip on an offensive rebound. I'm thinking about the Florida game where he tipped it to Estrada to send it to stretch it back out to, I think it was a 3-point lead. Think about the Arkansas game where he either tipped it to Reitzel or maybe even Estrada again. And Sam gets a lot of flack for his defense, but he was also a guy who had to lock up Grant Foster at times. And I thought with what we've seen from him previously in the year that he was making some strides last night. And I was happy for him to knock down a big three, and hopefully that gives him some confidence going forward too with that shot.
You got some – sorry, go ahead, Michael.
So speaking of Walters, there were a couple times in the game where he got switched off onto Grant Foster. And initially, I think when he came into the game and subbed into the game, he was on Grant Foster. I was really shocked to see him on there, but he actually did a really good job. One thing that he does well, that Grant Foster does well, is body up on his drives and you plays through contact. And Sam got right in there with him, and I was surprised at how well he did.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a few. I'll talk about that in a second. We have a few people talking in the chat. So we'll talk about the North Carolina breakdown in just a little bit. We're still talking about the Grand Canyon game. So stay with us, Lance. Ramadan Mo, Andrew King, Ramadan Mo completely changed the game. Likes the addition of the ticker. Good to see we can win a game in multiple ways. Coach Harper is a great addition. So if you like Michael on the show, we might have him back on. Playoff goatee.
I paid Andrew to say that.
Yeah, you did. Playoff goatee is actually like a thin beard. I don't like to keep it up here. So some people say I look like Mr. Beast. That's why I'm on YouTube right now. And no, I'm not giving away a Lamborghini, unfortunately. So let's see. Hayden, UNC matchup we're talking about in a little bit. We're still talking about the game from yesterday. No, Sam, and also Sam hit a big was it a three? Yeah, he hit a big three late in that game that when Alabama was kind of searching for someone to hit a three, and then obviously I think Sears hit another dagger three. Hayden, yeah, I'm going to Los Angeles. Hit a dagger three. I think it was a tie game, or I believe it was tie game, and then Mark came down and just hit one at the top of the key. That just kind of was like one of those. It's one of those kill shot threes that not necessarily puts the game out of reach, but takes away momentum from a team. There's a lot of the times where either there's a missed free throw that'll lead out to a run out that kind of flips the momentum of the game. And I think that's what happened is I think we missed a free throw. Grand Canyon came down the court, tied the game on a layup, and the crowd was going kind of crazy. And then Mark just comes and answers with a three. And he's great. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Who was about to say something?
Before we get in, I want to go ahead and start speaking this into existence for next week. I'm expecting a big weekend from Grant Nelson. I know he did not play a ton of minutes this past weekend, but the block he had on the 3-point shot, the hustle play that he had on the steal, that I think was the play that led to no, that was Estrada coming up behind Grant Foster and then getting the steal, kicking it to Sears, and then finding Stevenson on the dunk. It's not a night where Grant scored a lot of points. And he only played 17 minutes. But I think Grant's going to have a big weekend. I don't know why. I think Grant has had a really good year. I think a lot has been expected to him. and the expectations that were probably put on him by some fans were not realistic. I was talking with some people today. I kind of feel like he's gotten the Noah Gurley treatment, where he's had some good games, but it's just like there are times of bad play and bad plays that people get really down on him. But I just have this feeling like Grant's going to hit some big shots. He's going to be able to go up against Baycott or Harrison Ingram in the first game. Hopefully get to the foul line where he's been pretty successful. I know right now he hasn't shot the ball well from the free throw line, but he's a guy that he's continuing to make the effort play, and he continues to play hard. And I think he's primed for a big weekend. So my goal this week, not only on this podcast, live Q&A, whatever, is just to speak it into existence that Grant Nelson is going to have a big week in LA.
He did hit some big free throws last night. He was I looked it up and I have the stats right here, but he was 3 for 4 from the line, and two of those came in pretty in crunch time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was down the stretch, final minute. I think he hit 2 of them, and then I think Sears hit 2 of them in the last minute, I'm pretty sure, to kind of put that game away. It's funny because the Grand Canyon players were like, oh, well, that game was so much closer. All we needed to do was grab a rebound and we win the game. And I'm sitting there like, I don't know. I don't know about that kind of thought process, because I really feel like down the stretch, Grand Canyon, Alabama looked like a team that had been there before. Alabama looked like a team that in crunch time, in a close game, they knew what they were going to do and they knew how they were going to do it. Grand Canyon played a lot of isolation basketball that, frankly, it made it easy for Alabama to defend. Because if you're not running a set, and Michael, you probably know this more than I do, so I don't want to speak out of turn on this, but correct me if I'm wrong. If you're not running sets and you're running isolation basketball with just high pick and roll screens like they were doing for most of the game, it's easy to just say, hey, we're just going to switch these. We're going to communicate the switch effectively, and then we're just going to prevent them from getting in the lane, which is what they wanted to do to get to the rim. Am I correct in that type of assessment?
Yeah, that's right. They were doing a lot of set up for ISO to get Grant Foster on the right mismatch so he could get to the free throw line. And all there really was ISO on one side of the floor with a side ball screen, or there was a middle pick and roll, and which, I mean, we've struggled to defend the pick and roll most of the year. But I thought I actually have the game on right now, and we did a really good job communicating in pick and roll actions. We also switched really well. They did run some flare action to try to confuse us, which is understandable because we haven't communicated well, and we switched at the perfect times. You could see us not just communicating verbally, but we were communicating with our hands. And we, that was really the best communication I've seen from us all year.
The one that sticks in my mind is the triple switch that we did.
Yes,
it was like Pringle, Estrada, and I think Sears, was it, or was it Griffin? I can't remember. But up at the top where they literally just kept switching like back and forth, and I'm like, where has this been all season?
Yeah,
like that's just like basic basketball 101, like that type of communication. And Nate said it himself, like, these guys don't want to lose. And I know every team doesn't want to lose, but like you can really tell that they do not want to lose. And for guys like Mark Sears last year, who lost to San Diego State in the Sweet 16, you got to think that this game is just he's going to put it all out there to ensure that the feeling that they had last year at the Sweet 16 doesn't happen again. Which is, and guys like Aaron Estrada as well, who's never been to the NCAA tournament. and he's in the Sweet 16 for the first time, and he's a fifth-year senior. This is his last chance. Every single game he plays could be his last game in college. And so it feels like these guys are going to try to will themselves to have, I guess, the top level success, which I guess their goal is to win a national championship. And I mean, I don't guess. I know that that's their goal. Whether or not that they can achieve that, that's to be seen or to be determined. But they're gonna die trying is what I'm getting from it.
And what makes that even more remarkable is that there's a former North Carolina player out there talking about how this team has chemistry issues. If you have chemistry issues, I don't think you play the way you play like that. I don't think you have your teammates back like that. So those reports of chemistry issues, I think, were false.
Well, it's not just the North Carolina player. We saw another article come out today about how Nick Pringle was the issue on this team, which is just not true.
You mean Nick Pringle, the most liked player on the team, and the player that the other teammates said that he was the most fun guy to hang around? That Nick Pringle?
The vocal leader of the team, yeah.
It's the same guy who said Alabama basketball would be better off without Colin Sexton.
That's right? The same one. Yeah. That's the same one. And he said some other things last year that I don't want to mention. But let's get to some other questions. I know a lot of people have been asking them. So the whole Reitzel thing, Latrell Reitzel, he was announced yesterday as available to play on Thursday. I do think that they probably took like a little bit of a step back from that, and saying that he has to go see the doctors, which is correct. I mean, like, he needs to be cleared medically. They can't just say, "Hey, he's ready to go." But do we think that he's just saying that? I mean, there could be a little gamesmanship there, but I don't think Nate's one of those guys that's gonna. I mean, he did do it with Herb Jones, but as far as Reitzel is concerned, like, it really is like a wait and see, because if you're dealing with a spine/head injury, which I believe it's probably a head injury, like, you truly don't know. And so they said he's going to be game time decision. So I personally would expect him to play, but I don't know anything. That's just my opinion.
I think with it being another head injury this close to a previous one, you have to be extra careful.
Yeah, absolutely. Clint Moses, who I believe is a Tar Heel fan, said, "Don't forget Jalen Washington's coming off the bench. He's 6'10", which I think that's a really good segue into Charles. You said you looked at some of North Carolina's roster, and you thought that their size was a little bit maybe bigger than what it actually was. That's what she said. But sorry. But what did you look at to diving into the North Carolina roster?
Well, when you think about like bigs in college basketball, I mean, one of the guys on, I guess, the Mount Rushmore for this season is definitely Armando Bacot. I mean, he's been there for years. We saw him last year in the PK 85. Some of these numbers can be flubbed, I guess. But I was just surprised that he's 6'11", 235. Harrison Ingram is 6'7", 235. I personally thought Harrison Ingram was bigger than that. I do know Washington comes off the bench, but looking at North Carolina, Ingram, Bacot, RJ Davis, and Cormac Ryan, all of them play 30 minutes plus. And you got Elliot Kadu and Seth Trimble, who also play decent minutes for them as well. And they've got some other guys that will fill minutes, like maybe a Muhammad Wagi will for us at times. But they're really relying on that core four. So when I think about last night's game, where Grant Foster is 6'7", 220, McLaughlin is 6'10", 250, 260. Colt Brennan, I think that was his name, the number 24. He didn't play a ton, but he's 6'10", 6'11". He's 270. And our biggest guys are Nelson and Pringle at 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", 6'11", and about 230 pounds, 235 pounds. So just compared to Grand Canyon, I didn't think there was the length or size necessarily in the post that we might have to go against. But you also have to give credit. Armando Baycott played a lot of basketball. He's obviously very skilled down there. I think Harrison Ingram's a really good player too. But just as far as matchups, like Pringle or Wagee can match up against Armando Baycott. You can put Ramadan Moe and Rylan Griffin up against a Harrison Ingram. Sears, Estrada, Reitzel could all go up against an RJ Davis. Cormac Ryan's about 6'5", so you kind of want him, a little bit more on a Griffin or Estrada, but there's just not this huge size differential that maybe we've seen against a Tennessee or that we've seen against a Florida. I think, in a way, North Carolina's built a lot like Auburn, but North Carolina's guard play is so much better than Auburn's guard play. I mean, I think Broome and Jalen Williams are very similar to what Baycott and Harrison Ingram give North Carolina. But North Carolina's got RJ Davis, who averages 20-plus points a game, and Auburn clearly does not have that. So I just obviously I could be wrong Thursday when we play, but just as far as the physical presence that we've had to go against in the SEC those past couple games, and then playing against Grand Canyon, I wasn't taken aback that there was this big concern of we're really going to struggle getting to the rim, or that they can just pound it in the paint against us and have multiple guys down there that could get offensive rebounds against us than just a Baycott or an Ingram or whoever it may be.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Michael.
No, I think one of the big differences between North Carolina and Auburn, I think that's a good comparison. I do think Jalen Williams is a little better in the post than what if you want to use Harrison Ingram as that example. Like Jalen Williams actually has a little bit of post-up game, even though we don't see it a lot. We saw it in Auburn. Where Auburn did some high-low stuff with Broome to Jalen Williams to get against our 4-guard lineup. I don't know that you'll necessarily see that from them. I could be wrong. Maybe some a North Carolina fan in here can chime in. But I think that is a pretty good comparison. But I also do think North Carolina probably wants to play a little faster than the pace that Auburn played with.
Yeah. I think Auburn finished the year 56th in KenPom tempo, maybe 58th, and North Carolina is 41. So they do play a little bit faster than Auburn played throughout the year at least.
Also, don't look now. Alabama's defense is 101 KenPom defense. So, creeping up to that under 100 mark. But
well, it's good timing because I was looking at pre-tournament KenPom numbers and now where they sit, and UNC has gone from 24 to 16 on the KenPom offensive side. So I would think an 8-point jump from 2 games over the weekend when you don't have a ton of teams playing is actually probably a pretty big jump, at least that highly up in the rankings as you look at the KenPom offense.
Yeah, but I will say this: as much as the KenPom's updated, like I kind of hate how, and I love KenPom, and it's a great tool to kind of help quantify how good a team is. But I really wish that they would take account garbage time per points, both on the team that's blowing a team out and the team that is, being blown out. Because if you were to do that with the Charleston Southern game, our defense actually dropped, right? It was at 118th before the Grand Canyon game because of how much points they scored, which is just it's kind of unfortunate because I really do think that they played a good game defensively versus Charleston, and they're a good offensive team too.
I mean, I have no problem with other teams thinking we're worse at defense than we actually are. So
That's true. That's true. It's a good point. It's a good point. I've heard people say, "Oh, well, teams look at Alabama on the schedule and they're licking their chops because they think that they're going to just be able to score offensively." Obviously, that was not the case with Grand Canyon, and hopefully that can continue with North Carolina. But diving a little bit more into this matchup, what are you guys seeing from this North Carolina team that could potentially cause Alabama some problems as far as how they play or specific players?
Well, first off, they do have length. I know we talked about that for a little bit, but people are kind of already forgetting that Grand Canyon also had a good bit of length too. Bama has proven time and time again that I know early on in the season, length was when we were still in the non-conference play. Alabama didn't exactly match up, and they were still figuring things out on defense, which they were figuring things out on defense until about a week ago. So, I think that even with the length North Carolina has, I saw one of the comments was, let me see if I can find it. Hayden said, how can we maintain Baycott, especially with our rebounding struggles? If you look at the roster, Grand Canyon's actually a taller team and has more length than North Carolina is, and Alabama was able to out-rebound them. I think it was 50-41 on the night. So I think that they're going to be just fine in that. Now, I do think that North Carolina has a little bit better offensive production, obviously, than Grand Canyon does. So we have to look at them on that end of the floor. But as far as, from a rebounding standpoint, I think we're going to be all right. I think there's a lot of factors coming into this game. One that we haven't even mentioned is the fact that North Carolina has to fly all the way from Charlotte out to the West Coast, and Bama's going to stay in the same time zone. They're not coming back. But with on the court stuff, I think Alabama feels like they're in a better position right now than North Carolina does. I think this team has proven a lot of people wrong, but most importantly, they've proven to themselves that they can win, and they've proven to themselves that they can stay together as a team. And those are my points for now. I'm sure Charles is about to get into the more the nitty gritty, but I think that this team really does have a shot. I just think that most people are concerned about North Carolina just because they're blue blood and that they have a lot of tall players, but Bama's beaten teams so far this season that could be better than North Carolina. So I'm not too concerned about that.
Look, and I'll say this before Charles goes on his deep dive. I think you said this in the group chat, Charles, but North Carolina was ranked below, or Alabama was favored over North Carolina for a majority of the season on KenPom. Mm-hmm. Like if you were to compare the two teams. And it was only until the injuries happened that North Carolina took that edge over Alabama. And that's not me saying Alabama's, guaranteed to win or anything, but for a large part of the season, the metrics and analytics liked Alabama over North Carolina. So it's not out of the realm. I know I've seen some people say, oh, it's going to be a blowout. Alabama's going to lose by 18, 19 points. And that may happen. Like Alabama this season has yet to show away from Coleman Coliseum that they can beat a high level opponent. And so that thought makes sense, but let's not say that Alabama is overmatched here because I don't think that they are. So Charles, let's hear your thoughts.
Well, to your point, whether you feel like it's good or not, as far as ESPN's basketball power index, it's currently giving Alabama a 52.7% chance to win this game. So it's a coin flip, of course, but I think a lot better than what maybe many Alabama people and probably some North Carolina people thinking that North Carolina would be, based on some of the analytics, more likely to win this game. When we played North Carolina in the PK 85 last year, in the regulation point of the game, I mean, we basically played a game and a half with the 4 overtimes. But when we ended regulation, Alabama was 15 of 31 from the 3-point line. So obviously got good looks. Mark Sears was great. He was 7 of 11 from 3, finished with 24 points. So I like that, of course, coming into it, that we were obviously getting guys open. And, yeah, this is a different North Carolina team, and we're a different Alabama team as well, but we've also got a lot more shooters. And I think it's more so than ever. It's Mark Sears can do what Mark Sears does and get his 20-plus points. But when we started off the year, we talked about the big three of Sears, Estrada, and Nelson. And they were all, somewhere around the 20-point mark. It felt like every one of those early non-conference games. Now, I get competition is not great, but they were still getting those points. Whether it's those three or whether it's Griffin or Reitzel, like we need 3 or 4 guys to get to double digits and score the basketball. And that's both from the inside and outside. Looking at the games that they've lost against NC State, against Syracuse, against Clemson, they had 3 or 4 guys that got, double-digit points. And they probably had 2 guys that would get to 20-plus points. I don't know what happened in the game they lost to against Georgia Tech. North Carolina was 9 of 17 from the free throw line. They didn't shoot the ball well, but there wasn't anything on the stat sheet as it relates to Georgia Tech that was like, wow, they were really hot from 3, or man, they really took care of the ball, or wow, they outshot them by a lot at the free throw line. I'm just going to chalk that game up to a fluke, which I'm sure a lot of North Carolina fans would as well. But they've also, they lost to Kentucky, who's been a good team, UConn, number 1 overall seed, Villanova, who was playing with a lot of confidence early on in the year. What you were talking about as far as, hey, Alabama hasn't played great recently as far as big competition. They're going to get blown out by 20 points. Yeah, Alabama will get blown out if we get in foul trouble, we consistently put North Carolina on the free throw line, and we don't shoot well from the 3-point line. But there's a lot of that where, I still, when we were at Creighton, we were like 4 of 21 from the 3-point line, and we're still able to play with them. This could be a game going back to like how we played Purdue early in the year, where, our 3s are overmatching their 2s. The difference in the Purdue game was Braden Smith went off from the 3-point line as well, and they shot from the 3-point line pretty well too. But we've shown that we can hang in these non-conference games against really good opponents. So, I'm hoping that even as fast as they have played, our pace is just another level, especially if they're going to rely on those 4 guys. But I think I've been saying this, it feels like every game. So I apologize and I'm a broken record about it. But keeping them off the foul line. Like if we can win the free throw battle, if we shoot more free throws than North Carolina, like I don't just like our chances to win. Like I like our chances to potentially run away with the game as well, because that means we're attacking the rim. Again, hopefully we capture this and one momentum since we got so many to make up for since January. But that also probably means that they're going to collapse and we're going to have opportunities to kick out for 3. I'm curious to see what we do with Baycott because since it is RJ Davis who scores the most points for them, I'd like to see if we can play him one-on-one. We've been successful at times. I think double teaming guys. I mean, Sears, Estrada, they're really good if they get matched up on a big and creating steals and turnovers. But if you have to beat them 3 for 2s, you obviously don't want to double Baycott where he can kick it out to find a Cormac Ryan or RJ Davis or whoever for a 3-point shot. But it was a fantastic game last year. It was probably one of the top games in all of the regular season, if not college basketball last year. And if I talked a little bit about it, their next opponent, if it's Clemson. The last time they played Clemson, they lost at home, so they could be looking ahead to that. If they play Arizona, they're playing former teammate Caleb Love. Like, can they be locked in from the start? And if they're not, can we take advantage of it and run out to a big lead where they've got to play catch up the rest of the night? But keeping them off the foul line, keeping the guys that we need on the floor and not on the bench with 2 fouls in the first half or 4 fouls in the second half, I think is going to be pretty crucial for us as the game plays out.
So, I'm sorry, Christian.
I was going to say, absolutely. Go ahead, Michael. So you were already doing that.
So a part of just to piggyback on what you were saying with free throws. So I think it's important. It's obviously important for us to stay out of foul trouble, but I think it's important for us to, not put certain guys on the line, not just anyone. So I've got their free throw percentages pulled up. We definitely need to keep RJ Davis off the line. He's an 87% free throw shooter. Baycott's a 78% free throw shooter, which is pretty good for a big. But Harrison Ingram is only a 61% free throw shooter. So, we obviously don't want to just put him on the line, but I think it's going to be more important to just maybe try to get a little physical with him and not let them think that getting to the rim is going to be a breeze.
Mm-hmm.
And then Elliot Kadu is only a 64% free throw shooter. So, and obviously Cormac Ryan is 87%. So, but we've seen him before, unfortunately. So I think it's who we send to the line. We obviously we don't want RJ Davis on the free throw line, not just because he's a good free throw shooter, but that's you get him to the line and that's giving him a chance to get into rhythm. So who we foul, not necessarily, that's more important than us just not fouling. The other thing, I was kind of saving this when Charles was talking about Grant Nelson. I think you're going to see a lot of pick and roll action with Grant. I think we're going to try to give Baycott the Oscar Tshiebwe treatment and try to put him in various pick and roll situations, and maybe see if we can force him into some tough actions on the perimeter, or even get them into some drop coverage, which we haven't seen a lot of this year. So, just to add to your Nelson comment, I think there's going to be some chances for him in this game, in my opinion.
Do you think you see more Mo Diabate?
Yes, I do. So with the way Oates talked about him last game, I think you absolutely do. And I would like to see him at least at times see him on RJ Davis a little bit, just to throw some length at him. Now I don't know if he has the lateral speed to keep up with him, but I think it's definitely worth a shot to try to put some length on him and maybe slow him down a little bit.
Yeah, again, speaking it into existence, Charles Bediako's best game last year, I believe, was North Carolina. There may be one or two others that I'm forgetting. Obviously, he played well against Tshiebwe in Kentucky, but I feel like we all came away from the game against Carolina last year that it was Charles had a breakout game and was primed for a big year. So hopefully, to Michael, your point, you put somebody like Grant Nelson in that role that also brings a different, side of it, that he could pop out behind the 3-point line and get some clean looks out there as well. And whether it's, Baycott trying to stick on him, or if you get, a smaller guard on him, I'm still waiting. I'd still love to see us at some point, just one or two possessions a half at least. Get Grant in the pick and roll, get him matched up with a small guard, and see if you can post him up and just let him go to work down there.
One thing that I think you could do, that I wouldn't be surprised to see, especially if Reitzel is able to go, which I do expect him to go, is to put Nelson in the corner some, and then have one of our guards in the dunker spot, if we're not in our 5-out stuff. And we did that. We've done that in the past. We did it some last year. We did it a lot in 2021. You put one of your guards in the dunker spot, put your big out in the corner, and then that's going to force Baycott out of the paint a little bit and makes an easier drive for Estrada or Sears or whatever. So it's a much easier finish than having to finish over Baycott. but that only works when we have 5 shooters in the game. So, and I know Nelson struggled from 3-point line, but he has shown that he is a capable shooter. So you can't just leave him open.
Yeah, and I'm also intrigued because someone did make a comment to me. Aaron Estrada to start the season was shooting extremely well, and as of late, he's kind of fallen. You know, he was 4 of 14 last night. What do you guys think is the you know cause of that? Because he wasn't a bad shooter coming into Alabama, and I don't think he's a bad shooter in general. But what do you guys think is the reasoning from maybe his struggles a little bit?
I think I think it's tired legs. And I know we rested, but I mean, and I don't really have a comparison, and that's my fault. I should have a comparison from how many minutes he's played this year compared to in the past. But he's played. I know he's playing in a lot more physical conference than what he's played in the past. So I think naturally, some tired legs are going to come into play.
I think that's the biggest difference is the competition that you're getting beat up every night. When he does drive to the basket, he's not getting the foul calls that he probably got against slower competition and maybe a little bit weaker competition being able to go through their body. So he's not having plays that generate a lot more confidence where you see the ball go through the basket, whether it's a free throw or whether it's a layup. I did think the shots last night, the 3-point attempts that he had, were good looks. Like it wasn't out of rhythm. He's also a guy that's probably taken the most mid-range shots for us this year, and he hit a pretty nice one last night too. I think it was from the free throw line extended. He's having to play a lot different, I think, than what he played at Hofstra, where it was a green light everywhere on the floor. And we know that's just not the system. But he and Reitzel, you got to be a little bit more tentative now, maybe. But both of those guys throughout the year, I thought there were times they could have gotten to the rim a little bit more and tried to get contact and get to the free throw line. Latrell going 27 of 27 from the free throw line is great, but 27 free throws for him too it's not a lot, especially with how much he had been playing before he got injured. So I think it's just he's a guy that's got to get probably similar to Nelson, needs to see one go down early. Doesn't matter where it is on the floor. And once it goes down, it really takes off from there. I mean, that's what was happening in the first 4 games this year is he was knocking down shots early in the game.
There was one point, I think it was the 3rd game of the season. I asked, does this guy ever miss? Because he really was not missing shots early in the year. But I mean, like I said a few minutes ago, I have the replay of last night going right now, and I've already seen Estrada get fouled 6 different times and nothing was called. The one where Oates got the technical, it was an absurd no call. And it's really not fair for him to be judged, for Estrada to be judged on that when he should be at the free throw line, getting to put up some numbers there.
Yeah, I just looked up Estrada's minutes. He's actually played. This is the least amount of minutes he's played in the last 3 years.
Okay, so I'm wrong on that.
But it's the most amount of games. So, and the minutes are. I mean, he's 100 minutes apart from the last 2 years that he's played. But it's 100 minutes, but the competition is just so much more physical than what he's used to at Hofstra. So, I mean, I feel like you're right on that as far as the minute, because it's not necessarily, it's quality of minutes, I guess is what I would say, not necessarily quantity. But another interesting thing I saw, he's got a career high this year in steals, a career high in assists, a career high in rebounds, and he's shooting. This is his second lowest 3-point shooting performance that he's had of his career. His other lowest was when he was at Oregon. He was 21%, which was just 3 of 14. But he only played 9 games in that. So
the other thing he brings is just the ball handling aspect. We don't have a lot of pure ball handlers, and when Sears, the rare times that Sears comes out of the ball game, he has to be the primary ball handler. But even when Sears is in, what he allows us to do is use Sears off the ball, and that's where we're able to get him off some flare screens, off some pin downs, not really true pin downs. We don't run a lot of true pin downs, but we get to work him off the ball, and that's big for him. And then when Sears is on the ball and he's off the ball, Estrada's really good on the. I'm sure you've heard Jimmy Dykes say it over and over again because when he gets one term, he's going to say it 100 times. But the go catch with Estrada on the move, catching, getting downhill, getting to the rim. So he's been really big. I saw some message board stuff today complaining about Estrada, but we're not even close to where we are this year without Estrada. And he was our second triple double in a decade.
He's flirted with it all season. All season. Sorry, go ahead, Charles.
No, I think that's a great point. Like, he and Nelson were obviously 2 big transfers that we got, and they came in with a lot of accolades. And I think a lot was put on their shoulders unfairly. They came out and they played really well the first 4 games, and it was like, as soon as they didn't play well, these guys aren't built for the SEC. Like, this is not a good team. Like, regardless of whether you believe it or not, if these guys are hearing it, like it's out there. Like, I'm sure they're hearing it. And that gets into, you're trying to play yourself out of that while also, trying to do the right things for your team. So it's just, you got to expect that our guys are playing with confidence. I mean, I think we saw that, especially coming off the Charleston game. And like, even though the layups weren't falling and the shots weren't falling, like they found confidence on the defensive side. And that's just things that hopefully you can take into the game Thursday.
My son just texted me, made another good point. This Estrada's never played at a pace like this before either.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Interesting note on Latrell Wrightsell, because now I'm down in the dungeon of sports reference, so I'm going down a rabbit hole. Latrell Wrightsell is only attempting 1.7 2-point shots per game.
Yeah, just not getting to the rim a ton. And like, yeah, he's a smaller guy, and with the size that we've had to go up against, like, it definitely limits his ability to finish down there. But would like to see him find a way to attack a little bit more, and that the whistle actually go our way where he can get to the free throw line.
And last season he attempted 7.3 a game, but just looking at his efficiencies, his 2-point efficiency hasn't been very good throughout his career. This year is actually his best efficiency number at 44.7%. But I think he's more of a spot up shooter, which I guess is what we've kind of seen. So I'm getting into a rabbit hole. So I closed out. So I stopped getting in the rabbit hole. But no, I personally like Alabama's chances. I don't know why I have some type of confidence about this game. I haven't had confidence about the tournament until this point. And maybe it's just a emotional high from getting to a point where I really didn't think that the team was going to get to, which is the Sweet 16. And fans of other teams or fans of our team can say, oh, well, it's just the Sweet 16. It doesn't mean much. Getting to the second weekend means something. Being one of the last 16 teams playing college basketball or in the NCAA tournament means something. And it might not be, oh, you don't get a regional Final Four or whatever. Like, I get that. To get there, that requires a lot of luck actually, no, it just requires a lot of luck, a lot of favorable bounces. So obviously quality players, quality coaching, different things like that. But you can have those things and still not get to a Final Four. But I've got some confidence for this team. I guarantee you that they're going to be excited about playing in Crypto Arena, Crypto.com Arena, which for those of you who don't know, that's where the Lakers play. There's a lot of history in that building, and I guarantee you that the guys are going to be excited about that and ready to go and ready to prove some people wrong, which is what they've been trying to do all season. And I'm not saying the phrase that all Alabama fans have been saying. I'm not doing that. But I think this team's got a chip on their shoulder and they're ready to prove some people wrong.
Were they down 12 like in the first 5-10 minutes against Michigan State in the second round?
Yep.
Yes.
And interesting fact about that, Evan Maya, who we were supposed to have on last week, obviously things didn't work out with that, but he tracks kill shots, and North Carolina is one of the worst teams in the country as far as being able to come back down from being able to put a run together. Obviously, he posted that, and then they went on I think like a 17-0 run, which is kind of funny. But if Alabama, I think it can kind of shell shock North Carolina, there's a chance there that as long as you can, I think I've talked to Andrew Parrish about this. As long as you can keep a team within 6 to 8 points, like you get up 12 and then they bring it back down to 6, but then you keep it between that 6 to 8 point range and make it feel like there's never a chance to get back down the stretch, really can motivate or demotivate a team and kind of tighten them up to force them to make some more mistakes than they normally would. So that's what I hope happens. I don't know if it will.
Well, and when I think about last night too, the games that we had against Clemson, Purdue, Creighton, Arizona, like we had leads in those games in the second half. It was talked about a ton by us and media and Coach Oates. Like we'd get to the point where it would probably be winning time, and we just couldn't close it out. And in a little bit, like we did that last night too. We got up 42-32. We got up maybe 49-38 or 40 whatever. And then Grand Canyon comes back and takes a 3-point lead. But we kept our wits and our poise about us, and we're able to reclaim the lead, as you said, finish on a 17-3 run and finish the game off. So this team has grown, and we talked about we think this is a team that could play its best basketball in March. I don't know if I would say that. Obviously the defense this past weekend is playing its best basketball, but it's playing basketball it's playing the level of basketball you need to play if you're going to make a run in March. And that's not just talking about last weekend. Like what you played last weekend, if you played Thursday night, you're going to give yourself an opportunity to win the game. And that's all you need right now.
Absolutely. And then Luke Robinson from Locked On Alabama said something that kind of resonated with me when he was talking about what was it? He was talking about, dang it, now I lost my train of thought. Oh well. This is when in the podcast I could go back to this, cut this out, and re-record it. But I had a thought and it's gone away. So
What
it is.
What do you think about Jaron Stevenson coming into this game and kind of keeping his emotions in check?
I don't think it's a Jaron Stevenson game.
I don't think it is, but I do think he's going to obviously get 10, 12 minutes like he typically does. And, it needs to be 10 or 12 minutes where he's, doesn't have to produce and hit 2-3 threes or anything like that. But last night, he struggled with foul trouble. I thought there were a lot of times where he was within his principle of verticality and they still called the foul on him, which is very frustrating to watch. But he's obviously going to play in this game, and I can imagine him to be emotional being a North Carolina kid. It came down to these two schools, and he's playing with us. So I agree it's not a game for him, but man, if he could come in and knock down a couple shots with this team and how they've kind of rallied around Ramadan Mo and Mudita and all that, you would feel like really good vibes. Of course, if Stevenson could do that and kind of give the team some confidence and momentum as well.
Yeah, I think he needs to learn, and I know he knows how to do this, but I think he needs to go and attack the rim more. I think
Yes.
for a lot of the times he's just kind of sitting out there, not settling for threes because they're open shots, but not being aggressive. And he's a bigger guy that could, go up, get some contact, maybe get a foul call, and go to the rim, and we're just not seeing it. Sam Walters is kind of the same way. You saw it last night when he turned the ball over, and he was in that corner, and he did a pump fake, went to the lane without really any direction, and got a shot block. And the moment he started driving into the lane, I was like, "This is going to be a turnover," just because there have been times for Sam, I will say, that he has been successful getting to the rim, getting through contact, and being physical, but more often than not, that's not the case. So
That last night probably wasn't the game for him to do that, just because of the way the game was being officiated and played. I think the next step in Sam Walters' development is learning not just pump fake and getting to the rim, because that's what he did last night, but the pump fake, one side dribble, and shoot the three, which is one of Reitzel's best attributes. Is he's not just a spot up shooter; he can make you pay for closing out too fast as well.
If he can in the offseason work on that, and then also the play I've been thinking about was Brandon Miller, getting a handoff ball screen, basically one dribble or just getting the handoff, set your feet and shoot. Like if Sam can be that type of player going forward, sky's the limit for him.
absolutely. Last thing I just want to talk about is Nick Pringle's passing ability, because I don't know where that came from. I know last year he did it a couple of times, but someone likened him to prime Al Horford down in the paint with him passing out to Sam Walters. I'm not entirely sure who said that. I don't know if that was our chat or the Crimson Crossover chat. I'm not entirely sure, but
Look,
Well,
y'all forgive me for a second for bringing football into this, but when you go to an Alabama football game and they play the old, highlights and it's going through the different characteristics, and I think the one's intensity where the defensive back knocks out the Illinois guy and the get the big boom from the student section. I'm gonna go ahead and put this out there for Gonzo. Like, can we get a video like that for basketball and it be a slow motion Nick Pringle pick on the Grand Canyon
Yes.
guy?
yes, yes.
I mean, we might get a double boom on that one for intensity with the pick and the dunk. That was awesome.
Yeah, I had a friend in another chat that I'm in say that if that were football, Pringle would have gotten called for a blindside block.
you're just standing there. What do you mean? The guy ran into him.
About Pringle's passing ability, that was one of and I talked about this in the space last night, but I thought that was one of the adjustments that that Oates and the staff made last night towards the end of the game. That was really crucial. And it was not, it was off the pick and roll, but it was a short roll. And so we're just rolling. He's just rolling to the free throw line. We get the ball to the free throw line, and he can either spray it out. But at the end of the game, where he took the short roll, took two dribbles like he was going to go up, and then hit Diabate on the cut for the layup, which that kind of, to me, that sealed the game. And so that was a great adjustment by Oates, but then for Pringle to be able to do that when we haven't seen a lot of that from him this year.
No, absolutely. And also Mark Sears facilitating last night was exceptional. He made the right decisions at the right time. And a lot of his turnovers weren't passing turnovers. He was exhausted and he got his pocket picked.
And last night, more than ever, we saw vocal leader Mark Sears. I felt like throughout the game, getting guys under control, telling them where they needed to be, just trying to get them energized. So that was great to see.
Yep. So, do we have anything else to talk about? I guess, do we want to talk about Clemson, Arizona? Or no? It's up to you guys.
I don't look past the current opponent.
I think it would be bad luck. I think it would be bad luck.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
the only reason I said that is because of podcast purposes. As far as maybe we'll do an emergency podcast if we win. We can do that maybe on
Emergency
Friday.
podcast Friday if we win Thursday.
Yeah, that's what I'll probably do. Yeah, because
You can do it live from.
I'll do it in the arena while the game's going on when we are winning by 15.
Goodness.
But no, I'll say this: Nate Oates last night did an exceptional job coaching. Not only coaching just the X's and O's, but the player management and talking to the players, being a calming voice. When the Pringle thing happened, normally you would see Oates go and start yelling at him, but he went over there and calmed him down. And that's what I've been wanting to see from a development standpoint from Oates. I think he's a great coach. And just being able to player manage in critical times is something that at times throughout his tenure at Alabama, he's kind of been lackluster on, but really showed me something that yesterday as far as what he was able to do. So just wanted to mention that. Also, yes, for everyone that has probably heard the upbeat time, my wife is going to Disney and no, she will not be in the house for the game. She'll be at the game. So if we lose, it's Sam's fault. So everyone knows. Everyone's clear it's Sam's fault if we lose. So
if we get behind, she can just go and walk around the concourse. That's
she's
the same as her night.
something like that. But yeah, we're excited to go. I'll have coverage for people that are interested or not. I'll still do it just because I'm excited to go. But we're leaving on Wednesday and we'll be there Thursday to watch the game, and hopefully it's a result that we can finally break through this ceiling that Alabama's had since 2003 and 2004, and maybe make a run at this. But if we don't, I just want everyone to understand that this has been a successful season. It's been exceeding expectations relative to what we all thought. So
it's another step. I feel like. Whereas we talked a lot about 2 years ago and maybe how that team fell apart. Like, you still got to the NCAA tournament, and there were still things to build off of. Regardless of how last weekend had gone, this would have maintained it. I feel like now that you've made it 3 out of the last 4 years, like, you're continuing to push the program forward. You can't win a national championship unless you get in the NCAA tournament. And that's what we've now done 3 of the past 4 years. And you just got to keep playing well enough to where you get these high seed, opportunities. Who cares if we beat a 12 or 13 seed to get there? Like, that's March. You don't get to pick your path necessarily. You just play your path. And that's what we've done. And hopefully we continue to play well, where we continue to have a path forward, whether it's to the Final Four or national championship. But even as you get into next year, like, the goal is always still make it to the NCAA tournament. I don't feel like it's ever should be Sweet 16, Final Four, like, for a particular year. That may be the goal for the program overall at some point, but it's always, let's just get to the NCAA tournament and let things fall where they may.
absolutely. Also, shop J&J Apparel. I'm wearing a different one than normal. I don't normally wear the sweatshirts, but super comfortable. Shop J&J Apparel. We might have I'm trying to get them to make a Sweet 16 shirt. They said maybe if it was a once in every 20 year type of thing, they would, but I told them it's the first time since 1990 that we've been to back-to-back Sweet 16s. I feel like that deserves a shirt, but who knows? Stay tuned on that. And no, I will not be releasing any Final Four designs that we may or may not have. I don't want that to get out there again. But with that, I think we're good to go. And we'll talk again, hopefully, on Friday. And if not Friday, then we'll talk again on. We'll have a podcast out next Monday. So roll Tide, and we'll talk again soon.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.